Hold on.
Hello all, welcome to our Lunch and Learn series. This Lunch and Learn, we're going to be talking about diversity in cycling. We're going to have Damon and Cheryl lead us through that discussion today. Some other things to be aware of that are coming along. We have the Indy Crit is going to be coming along this Friday and Saturday. So if you get an opportunity, please take advantage of that. Also, we have Car Free Day and Bike to Work Day coming up later in September. Those are on Wednesday, September 22nd. So please take advantage of that. Log in, pledge, and participate. We'd really like to see you out there riding with us. One last note, next month, our Lunch and Learn series is going to be featuring riding in the cold. So if you're up for that, myself and another cold rider will be giving a presentation on that. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to our presentation team for today.
Okay, I throw in a couple of things on those upcomings for Mass Ave Crit tomorrow night and for Indy Crit on Saturday. Bike Indianapolis will be providing complimentary valet bike parking, so you can ride your bikes down and we'll watch them for you while you watch the races. Oh, and on Bike to Work Day and Car Free Day, free breakfast in the morning and free lunch in the afternoon, both on the circle.
Awesome. Let's see. So I guess I'll go ahead and start. I was trying to get people, herding cats, to get presenters for this. So we're going to talk a little bit about diversity in general. Bicycling has not had a good history of being very diverse in whether it's race or age or gender. That's changing, and hopefully quicker in the next 20 years than it has in the last 20 years. But I think there's greater emphasis on it. And we had also on Spotlight on Bicycling that I do on Mondays for Bicycle Garage Indy. A couple of months ago, we had a program about that as well with Damon and Stephanie from Black Girls Do Bike and Nathaniel Harrell from Bikes United in Indy. And so we talked about the Major Taylor Cycling Coalition or Cycling Club and Black Girls Do Bike and Bikes United. One of the things that is happening tonight, and as part of the Momentum Indy weekend, is the Major Taylor honor Major Taylor ride, as well as and it'll go by the new Major Taylor mural. And
Connie, the ride is on Saturday at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, right. The ride is on Saturday.
The mural dedication is at 6 o'clock tonight.
Right. So there's some emphasis on that. If you don't know who Major Taylor is, I encourage you to find out. And I'm not going to go beyond that. It's a really, really cool mural, and I'm glad that Major Taylor is finally getting his due in his hometown. It's a long time coming. And I put together a mural ride on Ride Spot as a challenge for this month, and it goes by 6 different murals, including the Major Taylor mural. So we have an opportunity to see 6 different ones, and I'll put a link to that in the chat as well. But I will turn this over. I guess I'll let Chyri go first with Black Girls Do Bike and tell a little bit about your efforts and all of that.
Okay, hello, my name is Chyri McLain Jackson. I am the Shiro for Black Girls Do Bike. I lead and facilitate rides and mentor the group. I've had a couple of Shiros with the group to help facilitate the rides, and they have since moved. So then what I did is in order to keep a lot of the bike rides going throughout the city, I solicited 3 different ride leaders. So now the group has 3 ride leaders, and then myself as the Shiro. And what those ride leaders do is facilitate bike rides throughout the city. They will post them on Facebook. We have a Facebook group. You have to join in order to see when those rides are available. And then other individuals that just want to ride, along with the group and post and motivate and encourage individuals, they will ride and post to the Facebook group as well. So although the name is Black Girls Do Bike, it's inclusive to everyone. It's a national organization founded by Monica Garrison, and it has several local chapters. And we now have a chapter in London as well. So those are some of the ways that we keep individuals engaged in biking, is just by skill sharing and motivating, inspiring individuals through social media, whether that be through the webpage, blackgirlsdobike.com, or the Facebook page. There's a chapter in pretty much every state. And then also there is an Instagram page and Twitter. Are there any particular questions you want to know about Black Girls Do Bike?
Well, how fast do you ride? That's always a question that people.
And
So
how far?
yeah, so we have beginner group rides, and I used to facilitate one called a Sunday Slow Roll, and that was just so individuals can kind of get introduced to their bike and go out maybe 5 miles and come back in 5 miles. So it's a total of like 10 miles. But a lot of the ladies are experienced with the group, and most of them do ride road bikes and go for longer rides and try to max out. So I would say an average speed with the group would be probably 10 to 15 miles with most of the ladies. And as far as the mileage, it could be anywhere from 25 to Century. A lot of the ladies just came back from Atlanta and Georgia, and they biked the, I think it was called the One Love Century ride. And yeah. So I was excited to see that. I wasn't able to take part in that this year, but that we're not opposed to traveling to different states and meeting up with different groups. And so we like collaborating with different biking groups around the city as well.
Chyri, if folks want to learn about a particular ride, what's the best place for them to go to learn?
So Facebook is the best place for them to learn. Right now, we do not have men in our group, but some of the chapters throughout the United States do have men in their group. I'm not opposed to that. We just haven't had them in the past, but Facebook is our main contact of where they will find rides. With the pandemic going on this year, we didn't really have a set schedule. In the past, we've had schedules. Going forward, I'd hope to get some schedules for the next biking season.
Chyri, on Facebook, is it BG Indy?
It's actually spelled all the way out. It's Black Girls Do Bike, Indy, INDY. And then once you will see the page, and then you would just ask to join. And once you join the group, we welcome you to the group, and you're able to ask any questions. I think the main reason why we keep it inclusive to women is because a lot of them have personal questions about, biking attire and things that are happening, personal things that are happening with women when they bike in order to be comfortable on the saddle. So that's one of the reasons why we just kind of kept it to women, so they could feel comfortable in the group asking those questions.
That's good. I feel better for having been rejected now.
She let us down easy, I think, Damon.
Well, it's coming along. It's coming along. So looking forward next biking season. I'm ready to add some guys because we do have men jerseys on the website, blackgirlsdobike.com. They have a couple of men jerseys. And like I said, some of the other groups do have men in the group. I just hadn't opened it up yet, but I'm looking forward to do that next year.
Great.
I will say that I love almost all the jerseys of Black Girls Do Bike. I would love to get one, but then I don't know that, I would, if you had ally jerseys then, or encouraging jerseys or something,
Well, it's inclusive to everyone. So when I went to Michigan to their national meetup, that was like the second national meetup. I saw every ethnic background, all women having on the jerseys. I seen Asian women, I seen Caucasian women, and they were just proud to be a part of the group because they know that it's more about getting more women on bikes than the actual title. They know that it's inclusive to all, and everyone feels welcome whenever they're within our group.
Well, then that makes me feel better. If next time I see a really cool jersey, I might, not that I need another jersey. I have literally 75 jerseys, so I don't
my goodness.
need another jersey. But
Mhm.
of the jerseys I've seen in recent years, the Black Girls Do Bike are awesome. I love all
Thank
of
you.
the designs. They're really cool.
Thank you.
Sherry makes a good point. I think in general, most of the cycling clubs that are focused on riders of color are not exclusive to riders of color. It's just we want to create an environment where people are more comfortable, but not to the exclusion of others who want to come out and ride. I mean, we don't want to create discomfort. Like the Major Taylor Club that is now active and riding pretty regularly. We've had riders of all ages and all races in just the short time that we've been riding this summer show up at our rides.
That's
And
awesome.
all are welcomed.
Mhm.
So you want me to talk now?
Yeah, so go ahead and
Okay.
Damon, why don't you go ahead and talk
Um,
about the different things that you're involved with?
I'm
as
Damon
well.
Richards, and I am the executive director of Bike Indianapolis. And that's kind of how I find out about most of this stuff because people assume I already know and they tell me, and then I go, no, tell me more. But I got involved with the new Major Taylor Cycling Club. See, get it right. The Major Taylor Cycling Club of Central Indiana is the official name now. Indianapolis has had a Major Taylor Club for a while, but it kind of went dormant. The founders moved out of town and nobody really picked it up. So this new club started this spring, and I got involved when I heard about it, and we've been doing rides every other Sunday. And they varied in length from 20 to about 40 miles because we're trying to keep it at a distance where seasoned riders feel like they got to work out and new riders don't feel like they got killed. As the group grows, we'll start to either separate distances or separate speeds or do something to make it still work for everybody. But the club really got started because there's a group of Major Taylor cycling clubs from around the country who have gotten together at events like the One Love Ride and thought it would be great to have a Major Taylor cycling club gathering. And Indianapolis is going to host that next year. The first ever national gathering of Major Taylor cycling clubs is going to happen here in Indianapolis the middle of June next year. So put it on your calendar, be ready to come ride.
That's awesome.
There are, depending on who you ask, between 70 and 120 Major Taylor cycling clubs around the world, most of them clearly in the US, but there are clubs in other countries. And we're inviting them all to come to Indianapolis and ride with us. So that's why we've gotten started, and we've been out there riding. But there are a lot of other, well, let me go back. The conversation about diversity in cycling gets a little bit lost because of definitions. You know, what do you define as a cyclist? There are a lot of riders of color who would not describe themselves as bicyclists. Some of those are people who ride because they have to, necessity riders. Their bicycles are primary transportation. It's how they get to work, how they buy groceries, how they get to school. They don't describe themselves as bike riders. Much in the same way, a lot of bike commuters don't ever ride for pleasure. They ride their bike as for transportation, and that's it. And they don't consider themselves a part of the bicycle culture. And that's true of a lot of minority bike riders. And then the other side of that is even those of us who are serious cyclists tend to do more riding alone or in small groups of close friends as opposed to the larger gatherings of riders. So a big part of what we try to do with the Major Taylor Club and Black Girls Do Bike and many of those others is to create sort of a stepping stone, you know, be a part of this group, get comfortable with that idea of riding with groups, and then move on to those bigger gatherings like Chyri talked about. So given that, I'll throw out a couple of others that I've ridden with this summer and just had a blast. Nathaniel's group, Bikes United Indy, which I always get wrong. Great group to ride with. And most of their rides, like most of the Major Taylor rides, well, all the Major Taylor rides so far, are kind of designated as no drop rides. If the group gets spread out too far, the riders in front will stop and wait for the riders in back to catch up. We don't always wait for them to get rested, but we wait for them to catch up. And then another group that I rode with a couple weeks ago before I threw my back out, little group called the Riverside Riders, which everybody kept saying, oh, you got to ride with them, you got to ride with them. And finally I managed to track them down and went for a ride and just had a blast. We were a true slow roll. I think we rode 7 miles in about an hour. But we had a blast, and everybody we passed knew these ladies because on that day it was me and 3 or 4 other ladies. So I was the only guy in a bunch, which is great because ladies get treated so much better by motorists than guys do. But we waved at everybody, we stopped, we talked to people, we chatted up the neighborhood. It was just really, it was a different kind of bike ride, but it was a lot of fun. And I look forward to riding with them again. So that's kind of groups that I know about. And then I know of several other, they're not formal groups. They're groups of guys who get together and ride, and they're not really interested in inviting others. You know, to get into that group, you got to know somebody in that group and, you know, pass the secret handshake test and all that stuff. So there are a lot of riders of diversity out there. They're just not as visible because of the way they ride.
Yeah, and I'm going to expand the definition of diversity. Gender, young, youth, old people, there's a whole, it's not just white,
not just
men
color,
in their
right?
20s and 30s.
You're right.
There's
Absolutely.
a whole, people who are thin, people who are not thin, there's a wide variety of bicyclists. And, the goal is to make everybody feel welcome in whatever,
Yes.
Wherever they are in their journey as a bicyclist. And yeah, it is interesting over in Europe where they bike all the time for transportation. Nobody considers themselves a bicyclist, because that's just like considering yourself a race car driver because you drive to work. It's the same vehicle, but you're not using it at all in the same way. And so, although people who bicycle tour also don't necessarily consider themselves in the racing, there's all these little silos.
Yes, there are. I always describe it as cyclists are all a member of the same nation, but we really focus on our tribe.
Yeah, and there's some benefit in that if you can find your tribe and you feel comfortable with that and it encourages you. But you don't want to get too stuck in, because you're not necessarily always going to be in that tribe.
Right.
Like youth are going to eventually get older, and people in their 40s and 50s are eventually going to be older adults. So there's great diversity, and people can, that's the great thing about bicycling is you can ride from an early age until really old age and all the way in between.
Yeah.
It may not be the same type of bicycling you do throughout all of those stages, but you can. One of the things I'm really excited about in the youth arena is the NICA, National Interscholastic Cycling League, Cycling Association, and the Indiana League that just started last year with their races. And they have 4 races this year. And the cool thing about NICA is every kid that's on the team races. You don't get cut. It's eventually going, once they get bigger, they're going to be school-based. And, there are teams out west where it started several years ago that have grown to, they have 150 kids on their NICA team, and the school only has like 400 people,
Right.
400 students. They have like a huge amount are involved. And the other thing that happens is when the kids get involved, the whole family starts mountain biking. These are mountain bike races, but not everybody has to race, but they work out and with the team, and they have workout sessions, and then they go and they compete. And
you make a good point there in that, because the NICA stuff in racing is really cool. But I think a lot of people who are just getting into cycling, one of the things that holds them back is this fear that they don't go fast enough. And so
Right.
it's really kind of cool. And NICA is sort of what I view as the modern cross country. When I was growing up, cross country was that no cut sport. Everybody who came out got to run in the races, and you really raced against your personal best, because unless you were super fast, you weren't going to be in the tops. But a lot of people that I ride with, because I go around hunting for people who are riding alone, and ride up on them and chat them up, find out why they're riding. And a lot are afraid to ride with a group because they're afraid that they'll be the boat anchor.
Yeah,
And
they'll slow people down or whatever.
Right.
My evening cruise ride, the number one question I got is, how fast do you go? And my answer is, we go the speed of the slowest rider.
Right.
I get
And
that question asked a lot as well.
yeah. And and you have to, as a ride leader, that's a different mindset, because a lot of times if you are not used to leading a truly no drop ride, you're not used to stopping, you're not used to being a servant leader, you're used to riding your own pace. And that's why a lot of the recreational training rides, they say, okay, this group is going to go 16 to 18 miles an hour.
Right. If you can't keep up, too bad.
If you can't keep up, too bad. You're going to be lost. And so that's not very inclusive.
Right.
But it's a different. So leading to be inclusive is a really different mindset as a ride leader. You may not be able to go your own speed. You need to go the speed of what the group, what the slowest person needs to do. And you have to set that expectation at the beginning, so that when people are coming to the ride and they think, oh, well, I'm going to get my fastest workout tonight.
Right.
And we're going really slow because we have a slower person. I try and tell people when I was leading my evening cruise rides, if you're here to have a big workout, this is not the ride for you, because we're going to be stopping as needed to make sure everybody rides together as a group.
What I tell a lot of people about that is, this is how we grow the cycling community. So I tell riders who are coming to those rides, you're giving up your regular ride today to help somebody new learn to love cycling, and to try to get those experienced riders to share some of that knowledge with people, because they're not gonna get the workout that they would get if they went out and, pounded out 20 miles in an hour, which I can't do anymore. But but there's a different thing you get from it. I mean, you're still going to get exercise, and the cardiovascular benefits and all that stuff are there. That you don't have to ride very fast to get that, but you're going to get to see what cycling looks like to new eyes. We who've been riding for a long time, we forget how really cool it is to be out riding a bike.
Yeah.
And you get to
I
see
agree.
that when you ride with new people.
I agree. I think I may have to steal that verbiage, because I like that. That if you're coming for this workout, like, hey, that's not the ride. This ride is not for you. I like that.
Yeah, and if people understand that from the beginning, then it makes it, we're here to support everybody and to make sure everybody has a good time, and we're going to stop when we need to, stop after stoplights if we get separated, things like that,
Right. And by the
so
same token, we also, like for the Major Taylor Club rides, we hand out cue sheets. So everybody has the route. They're not marked, but there's a cue sheet to get you around. So if somebody wants to just take off and do it, they can go, and we'll just wave at them as they go by. But I assure everybody who comes, they will not ride alone, even if it ends up being just me and them.
yeah, when Randy and I were leading our grand touring rides, which I hope to be able to get to sometime in the not too distant future, we would say, we would hand out maps and cue sheets. The rides were not marked. We would stop at different intersections to make sure that everybody got through the different intersections. But we would tell people, if you are, if you want to go on ahead of the ride leaders, go ahead. You're just going to be on your own.
Right.
Yeah,
Our-
that's generally what I say if I'm facilitating a ride and they're faster riders and they just seem like they just have to get ahead. I say, go ahead and ride ahead. We're going to stop at the next, stoplight or whatever,
Right.
and collect
Yeah.
with the group.
Yeah, and sometimes, when we've led rides that are 50 miles and people, they go off and they get lost. There was because the road signs aren't always there, and they're not always checking their cue sheets or whatever. There was one time when we used to stop at Crouch's Market, which is now closed, but we'd walk. There were people coming from 4 different directions to that place.
I've had that.
But they
Right.
found it. They found
Yeah.
it, and it was beautiful scenery, and they all had a good time. But so they also, it's really managing expectations at the beginning of the ride. So we would tell people at the beginning, we're going to stay back. We usually end up riding with the last person on the end. But if you have, like, sometimes we would get 50 or 60 people in the hills in Brown County and Bartholomew County, you can't keep 50 to 60 people
Right.
together in hills. It's just not possible. And so they would basically break up into small little groups, and they would ride together, whether they followed the exact route or not.
Right.
But they would ride together, and everybody did find their way back to the beginning. So it's, a lot of it is managing expectations, but then also being welcoming of the people that do come, especially people that you can kind of tell it might be their first ride. You don't always want to make those assumptions, but you just say hi to everyone. And
I love riding with new riders, and I really enjoy experiencing with them their firsts. This is the first time I went 25 miles, or this is the first time I rode for 2 hours, or whatever it is, because it's like, gosh, I can't remember the first time I did that. And being there when they do it is really kind of cool for me. So I love getting out with new people.
So
Yeah,
can I ask-
Chyri, do you have any stories of people's firsts from rides that you?
Yes, so a lot of times when individuals would get on the bike, they would say, you know, hey, I believe I can only ride 5 miles. And then when they get out and start enjoying the scenery, they realize that they've gone 10 miles, and then they realize they've gone 20 miles, and they're like, wait a minute, how many miles have we gone? And I'm like,
Yep.
just keep riding, if you're enjoying yourself, you're okay, just keep riding. And so there are a lot of ladies that come out and don't even realize that they can go over 20 miles. And again, it's not even about the speed, it's just going out and enjoying the day and then taking in the scenery.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of, one of the things that I miss about leading rides is just, introducing people to new areas that they haven't been before. And some scenic neighborhood roads that they never knew existed, or, paths to get in, like the Fall Creek Trail and how it connects to Fort Harrison State Park. That's just, it's really neat. Or some of the areas that we've led people on Grand Touring rides. It's just neat to see, even though I've ridden in that area lots and lots of times, it's neat to see it through new eyes where, people are going, oh, this is so great. And so just being welcoming for people. One of the things that I've been doing this year is teaching a bunch of people of all ages how to ride bikes. And I have had more adults probably in the last couple of weeks than I've had before. And one of my adult students, she already knew how to ride a bike. She taught herself, but she wanted to make sure she was doing it correctly. And she has all of these goals. She lives across the street from Target, and she wants to be able to ride her bike to Target to pick up a couple of, small things. She wants to go, to meetings at her kids' school. She wants to go on short bike rides with her kids. And so she didn't feel real confident starting and stopping. And so we were working through some of those things. And she came back this week and she said, I went to the doctor's office by bike. And I went to my, I went and I picked up my prescription by bike. And I went on a bike ride with my neighbor in our neighborhood. And it was just, so she's actually already doing what she wanted to do. She's still coming back for additional lessons, but that's been really cool to see. And then I would say I've had people in their 30s, 20s and 30s, and mostly women who are learning how to ride a bike for the first time. And it's always really cool when they pedal for the very first time, because it's like, wow, I pedaled, yay. Then I have to teach them how to turn and stop and get the seat at the proper height and all of that. But, pedaling is a big, huge step. And getting kids and kids riding too. It's a little harder. I have them wearing masks, and so I don't get to see the smiles that I used to see. But I can tell usually by their body language and, raising their arms, yay, that they're having a good time. And I don't always see them once they've started pedaling. I have other skills to teach them, because just because you can pedal down a downhill doesn't mean you know how to ride a bike. But so they, I don't always see them, but lately I've been seeing them more and more, and it's neat to see them be more confident in their riding skills. And so that's one of the young men that I worked with. I think he was about 12. His parents tried to teach him for like 2 or 3 years, and it wasn't working. And I got him pedaling in his first lesson. And they're like, wow, you got him so far, and he's come now for his 3rd lesson, but he's already now gone for bike rides with his family after the 2nd lesson, which is really cool.
Story.
Yeah, which is what they were hoping to do, so that's, like I said, I don't always hear the stories afterwards, but every so often I get that information. So I'm,
Connie, mhm.
yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
So I've taught probably about 50 to 60 people this year how to ride bikes.
Wow.
Of all ages. So it is a lot of fun. And I would be more than happy to teach other people how to teach people how to ride bikes. Because eventually I may or may not be able to do this for the rest of my life. And I would like to pass on that knowledge to other people.
And then we want to pick them up after you teach them.
Right. And I have told some of them about, I've had actually quite a few Black women. My very first adult this year was a Black woman, and she just sent me a message via Facebook with a map of where she's riding. She's riding in her neighborhood. And she said, I probably need to come back in, but she wanted to let me know that she was riding. And I had told her about Black Girls Do Bike, and I tell most of the women who are that are Black or Latino, I tell them about Black Girls Do Bike as well, as because I think that's.
You can tell the Caucasian ladies about it.
I'll tell them, yes, I now know that, so I will do that as well. But
in addition,
I would say I've had more Black people as well this year than kids and adults than previous years. I would say 25% maybe.
So what do you think is easier to teach, adults or children?
It has to do with how fearless they are.
Right. It's different.
It's
different.
I can talk to the adults and try and get them to think through their fear.
Mm-hmm.
That I can't necessarily do with a 6 or 7-year-old.
Yeah, adults, you have to get into an adult's head where kids are just go. Like when I used to teach computers, way back in the days before Windows, I would put the little kids in front of a computer and I would say something like, well, if you hit this F1 key, a help window will pop up. And you hear them all right away, blam, hit that key. And then a few seconds later, you'd hear everybody hitting again because they're like, well, if F1 does help, then what does F2 do? When I taught adults, I would say, if you hit that F1 key, a little help window will pop up and there'd be silence. And I'd have to say, go ahead, hit the key. And you'd hear a few clicks and then a few more, and finally everybody would do it. But you rarely hear, well, what does F2 do? And they'd start clicking away.
Yeah, kids are definitely much more curious.
Yeah, so it's the same thing when you're teaching them writing. It's like the kids are already thinking, what next are we going to do? Where the adults are thinking, am I doing this right?
Yeah.
So it's a different process.
Yeah.
But our follow-on, Connie, is, yes, it's important to learn how to steer and how to start and how to stop and how to shift gears. Then we want to take them and show them how to take those skills and put them on the road. Because as much as we'd love to have a fully separate bicycle network, it's not going to happen in our lifetimes. And so if you're going to use your bike to actually get somewhere, you're going to have to share a road with cars. Mm-hmm. And that's some of what we do. And I hear that a lot in the Major Taylor rides, and I'm sure you hear it too, Chyri, where people say, I'm more comfortable riding on the street with this group, and I'm afraid to do it by myself. And Bike Indianapolis started a program this year called Bike Guides that we do in partnership with Commuter Connect, where we're doing one-on-one rides, taking experienced riders and pairing up with what I initially called the COVID riders. All those people went out and bought bikes last year to try to keep them riding by enhancing their road skills. And I was one of the bike guides, and the woman that I rode with had just bought an e-bike, and her goal was to be able to commute to work. And she'd only done a few little rides around her neighborhood. And I went out on our first ride, I took her out on the streets. And a few days later, she sent me an email and said, I rode my bike, and put in parentheses, on the street, and talked about all the places that she went. And so it's really, there are some skills that you can impart fairly quickly that will make people more comfortable riding on the streets. But first, they got to be comfortable riding their bike.
Yes,
So
I agree.
it all kind of flows together.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the ones that have started, then that's kind of where the ride spot rides that we have are, shorter rides and mostly on trails for them to explore different areas. And then hopefully they'll, want to reach out and branch out and potentially ride with groups or find out these other things. The one cool thing that I've seen with Black Girls Do Bike is the group is now going to other rides, which is really cool. So they're experiencing the larger bike events.
Right.
And if you go with a group, it's always more fun to be riding with your friends amongst a bigger group.
Mhm.
So,
I agree.
there. Any other things you wanted to add, either Damon or Chyri?
Like I said, just kind of a general thing. If you have a bicycle, get out and ride it with somebody. Maybe it's your neighbor down the street that you see hauling their bike out. Ask them, can you go for a ride? For people who ride recreationally, this is their hobby. This is their passion. And everybody loves to share their passion with somebody who's just getting into it. Now they might boss you around more than you want them to, but the same thing happens when somebody takes you golfing or takes you, my newest adventure, pickleballing. You start getting instructions that are probably before you need them, but you can pick up that enthusiasm and start to learn and get better at it and work your way into being a part of the tribe.
Damon, did you want to mention the neighborhood rides that have started?
Oh, sure. Gosh, I will not be able to name them all.
Yeah, there's a lot now.
Yep, we're up to 6 or 7. We have worked with different community organizations to create neighborhood rides. They're fairly short, like Chyri talked about. They're 5 to 10 mile rides, no drop, using bike infrastructure and low stress roads. And they're all over town. You can find a listing on the calendar at the Bike Indianapolis website, bikeindianapolis.org. And come out. We'll have people who have been trained to lead the rides, so the routes have been picked to be safe. As when I'm leading them, I kind of base what I think is safe on who shows up to ride. And I'm always trying to push everybody's envelope a little bit, but it's a great way to get out, do some riding in a small group, and learn how to be a better rider. You can also sign up to get a bike guide. Go to the Commuter Connect website, commuterconnect.us, and you can sign up and get paired with somebody who'll do one-on-one rides with you close to your home.
Can I ask the panel a question?
Sure.
Yes.
So as ride leaders in our community who are passionate about cycling, if you found yourself in an elevator with somebody who was contemplating riding, getting into cycling, what words of encouragement or tips would you give them to get them started?
So I'll take the question first. So
Yeah.
if I'm in the elevator with someone and I want to give them some encouraging tips or inspiring tips to bike, one of the things I would say, because I probably don't look like a typical cyclist, I would say I'm a biker and you can be too, or I cycle and you can too. Another thing that I would let them know is that it's like a pep rally for girls on bike when I'm talking about our group, when I'm talking about Black Girls Do Bike, because it's so much skill sharing and so many motivational messages when we go out on the bike rides. So I think the encouragement would come from letting them know my I story. The I story is that I'm a cyclist, and if I'm a cyclist, guess what? You can be too.
Yeah. And me, I if I'm in an elevator with them, I'm going to invite them to go on a bike ride. It's like, let's go for a ride. I will go ride with you. And it's funny because I tell people, I have this great job. I get paid to ride my bicycle.
And I just love to share the joy of bicycling. That's why I got into bicycle advocacy, why it still motivates me is I get so much joy from bicycling, and I want to make the opportunities for other people to experience that same joy. And for me lately, during the pandemic, bicycling has been my sanity. Just getting out on my bike and taking photos of nature and being outside has kept me, some would argue whether or not it's worked, but it's kept me relatively sane in the past year and a half. And prior to that as well, but it's just, it's just so much more fun, and you see things at a different, when you're on a bike, you see things differently.
Yes,
when-
life looks different at 12 miles an hour.
Yeah, when you're in a car, everything, you don't even notice things. And when you're walking, you're not really able to cover nearly as much territory. And so, you can see all sorts of different things when you're on a bike.
Yes, I agree. It's a sense of freedom, stress reliever.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes. When I was a kid, it was freedom. I'd just
Absolutely.
go out on a bike ride and didn't, I was gone. I just had to come back when it was dark.
Mhm.
But yeah, even as an adult, and my husband, when he was growing up, he would go for a bike ride and his parents would say, "Where are you going?" He goes, "I'm going out west." He didn't know where he was going to go exactly, but he was going to go on a bike ride and eventually he would find his way back.
I had the same experience. People would see my mother and say, "I saw this little boy that looked like your son, but it couldn't have been your son because it was way out on the east side." And my mother would say, "Was he on a bicycle?" To go, "Yeah, that was him."
So, Andy, do you have any stories?
Do I have any stories? Oh, I
Right.
have lots of stories, Connie.
Mm.
Or
Don't-
Lydia, who has joined us. Do you have any stories as a bicyclist that you'd like to share?
Or questions.
Or questions?
Yes.
Give others the opportunity first.
Lydia says, "No stories."
She's
Doesn't have
working.
any stories. She's working. She's multitasking while she's
Oh,
listening.
good.
More power to you.
A final message would be, bike riders are not scary people. Pretty easy to get to know and get along with. So if you're thinking about riding, come out and ride with us. Look us up and join us for a ride.
Well, I think that'll probably, and we'll end on that. And thank you both to Damon and Chyri for joining us, and look for the next Lunch and Learn. It'll be on riding in the cold.
Burr.
Making me
I'll
cold already.
go down to like 40, maybe
That's about me.
35.
Nah, 40 is about it.
I've ridden when it's 20, but only on the polar bear ride one time. Half an hour to get all of my layers on
Yeah.
before I started. But so anyway, that will be coming up next month, and then that's our last one, I think, for 2021. Is that right, Andy?
I think
Yeah.
so.
I think so.
Yep, we'll get everybody riding in the cold. We'll see y'all out there all winter. It'll be fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and
Thank you.
I'll be putting up this recording up on the calendar. So you'll see the link for that if you go back to the calendar and share it on Facebook. So everybody can share it at that point. So thanks a lot.
All right.
Thank you, panel.
Bye.
That was a wonderful presentation all.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.